Okay, guys, so let's go ahead and continue here. So we stop here where we're supposed to create the Docker file and on our new folder. Okay, so we were going to open up here our command prompt and create this Docker file, right? So we tried doing type Dockerfile, nothing happened. We did Dockerfile, echo Dockerfile, nothing happened. Um, so I actually just see other options right before starting. I typed here how to create a Docker file using command prompt. We I was gonna try this, but this doesn't really make sense. So why is it involving Python here? I don't want to use Python. But then I saw this that says Notepad Docker file. And so when I did that, it pretty much just opened a new note in Notepad. So if we do that, you see how it opened up a new file. We could try it. I'm not really sure if this is going to work. Let's see. So let's go back here to um, this place, and we're going to copy this code. We'll paste it here, and um, I'm hoping this works. I'm not sure. So what do these lines mean? So first line from Nginx latest means our image starts as a copy of the latest image, but we'll take a few modifications, additions to it to customize it for what we need. Think of it like you're copying an existing cheesecake recipe from an Nginx image and adding your own twist to it. Okay. The modified recipe creates a new dish, but luckily you didn't have to write the entire recipe from scratch. Okay, so that's what it's doing since it's just creating a copy of that image, containerized image that we had just installed not long ago. And it's going to copy an HTML files from what it seems. Okay, so we're going to expose it to port 80. Okay, so replaces the default HTML file. Sorry. Then the next two lines, okay, so replaces the default HTML file provided by Nginx with your own custom index.html file. So you're customizing the Nginx server to serve your own web content, okay? Expose 80 means you want the container to receive traffic through port 80, which makes it easier for users and other services to reach your web application. Remember this, it's going to be important in the next step. Okay, so take a screenshot of the Docker file and the content inside. Okay, so because I'm not really sure that this is going to work, I'm not going to take the screenshot just yet. I'm just thinking how this is going to work. Based on what I know, I don't think this really makes sense, but I could be wrong. But we're gonna skip this part. We can fill this out in the meantime. So the Docker file is a blank uh, file where we can um, customize a template that already exists, right? Okay, and then start with what do the three lines in your Docker file do? So my Docker file tells Docker three things: to copy the current Nginx uh, right template. Number two is we are going to copy the provided Nginx HTML file with our own. Okay. So number 2 is we use the replace the existing HTML file for a new one. And number 3, 80 means you want the container to receive web traffic through port 80, which makes it easy for user and other services to reach your app. Okay. Expose port 80 for other services to interact with our application. Okay, so we're not gonna finish this yet. So now let's see. Creating the web page for your container. Now that we have your Docker file ready, what is the web page that your Nginx container should serve? We'll put together a simple HTML file for this project. Run these commands in your terminal to create a new file. This file should be in the same directory as your Docker file. Okay, so if we do, can we do an ls here? No. There is a command to check. It's because I'm used to Linux. Haven't really used a command prompt that much, and I've also used PowerShell, so it's slightly different. But let's stick to command prompt. Okay, so we are on the correct here path. And so we are going to, we used this tool before, right, to create a new file. So we're going to do type index.html. It's not doing it. So perhaps, let's see if we can use PowerShell instead. Okay, so let's go to desktop and then compute, right? Now let's see if we do ls, how we have that Docker file. So if we do another, if we do echo index.html, will it do it? Yes, it looks like it did. Okay, so that seems to be working. So what is an HTML file for the guys that already know what it is? Good for the newbies. Determines what your web page is going to look like. It's a document that lays out your web page's layout, text, images, and links. So it's basically your front end, right? When Nginx opens your HTML file, it will read the code inside and display it on the user's browser. Okay, that makes sense. So open your index HTML file and this example HTML content and add these, okay? So if we do again, right, let's see if it will open it with Notepad. Index.html. Okay, so see how it's asking me, it says it cannot find that file, so it's going to create it. So this echo is not really creating it. I think echo is just printing what we are telling it to print. Yes, that makes sense. So we are not actually creating anything. We are creating it when we're doing this. But okay, so we'll create it. That makes sense. So let's just copy this. So we just do this. Right, so it looks like we have it right there. I would like to use Notepad++ because it's more designed towards developers. I have Notepad++. I'm going to probably not use this right now, but I just, since I'm thinking about it now, maybe next time I'll use this. So bear with me with that, but we'll continue here. All right, so just going to open up. Now let's close this. Okay. Let's close it. Close it on this. Your backup file cannot be found. Save it otherwise. No, I want to save anything. Okay, cool. So we got that. So we already know what the HTML file is going to do. But it seems like it's just going to display hello from my name, and you'll see that in action. Okay, check that your index HTML file doesn't have any errors. Open the index HTML in your browser, and make sure that it displays your website or your web page as expected. Okay, so we are going to run our local host, and if we go back up to where it asked us to run our local, which is this. So it looks like it's not really doing anything. Right, so it seems like we're gonna get stuck here for a little bit, guys. And what could be happening? All right, let's see. Seeing errors within your HTML file. It happens, especially if you're using text edit on a Mac. You may see this. See what I'm saying? So it's using just a text edit. So if we do an ls here, so we have the Docker file as a text file, and we have the HTML. Okay. So to solve this error, try opening your HTML file in another text editor. Ideally, code editor like VS Code, and save your file again. Okay, so let's take a look at this here. Let's see if they talk about how we can go ahead and create that Docker file. Can we just do here Dockerfile? But I don't know if the problem is my Docker file. Okay. The app I want to deploy is a React.js I'm currently working on. Okay, so I'm just going to download because I want to see. It's just I want to see what type of file this is. It doesn't really say, it just says Docker file. Interesting. Okay, so if we go here, with PowerShell. Okay, so let's see if there's another way to create a Docker file here. So it says run this command to create an empty Docker file. So new item type file. I'm not sure if there has to be some type of, like, I want to know if it's a text file or not. You know what I mean? It doesn't really says here. Let's go back. There's not much here. So let's see if we could also just Google it. It's actually this one, Docker. Let's go again. Dockerfile containers. Build a custom. I used a Docker file to define a Docker image the packages into. Completed. Okay. So let's see what we got here. Okay, so she created that folder. Copy, export in. Okay, so she run the app and then filter publish. So she's just looking at the actual container here. Ba-bam. Wait, with that, hello world. But where is the Docker file? I don't see it anywhere. Docker stop, Docker remove. Not much. There is not much here. So I think this is what I'm going to do, okay? I'm going to see if I can do notepad plus plus index dot html. So how would you create a blank HTML file to using PowerShell that opens with Notepad plus plus. Okay. This is like there are going to be parts where it's going to be a little bit challenging. We don't have the answers that we can look at anywhere. So again, how are we processing this information, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and run this command here. So it looks like we need to give it a, okay, so we got the name. Thing is the item type, but I'm not sure, would it be HTML for item type? If Notepad++ is not already, it's not already the default. And judge, it's just not doing it. See if we can Google it. How to create a new Docker file using cmd. Writing a Docker file is a text-based document that's used to create a container image. It provides instructions to the image builder on the commands. So it is a text file. Ready to run Python application. It's important to note that the Docker file has no file extension. Some editors will automatically add an extension to the file or complain it doesn't have one. Okay, so I mean, we did this and it automatically created it as a text file. Okay, and we have the index. Okay, so it looks like we're doing things right. My question is, why is it not loading? the new content. Are we missing something? So we open up my file explorer and we go to downloads and we go to desktop and we go to compute. We have both. So what if we just go here? Okay, so that makes sense. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. I thought there would be a connection, but this is just loading the old. So I think this is what's happening, right? It's just loading the first container image that we uploaded, but this is the modified one. Okay. All right, so that seems to be working then, so we can move forward. Check that your ad doesn't have any errors, so it doesn't because it's actually showing it properly. Okay. What else? So let's say it's building the image. Now let's build the image. Head back to your local terminal. Make sure you're still in the compute directory and run this. Okay. So we are in the correct directory. Okay, so we're going to copy this and we are going to go here. Failed to solve, failed to read Dockerfile, open Dockerfile, no such file or directory. See what I'm saying, guys? There's some type of issue here with this Dockerfile. What does building an image mean? When your team member prepared the app's backend, they wrote a file called a Docker file, and it is inside the GitHub repository that they shared with you. A Docker file contains instructions on how to build a container image that packages up an app, right? In this case, the backend and all its dependencies. Okay, so building an image means you are creating a container image using the Docker file that your team member prepared. When you run the docker build command, you were asking Docker to read instructions in the Docker file and build the container image for you accordingly. So, hi Docker, can you please build a container image of me? I've written how to do it in a Docker file. Gotcha, I built a container image for you. Okay. The container image lets Kubernetes set multiple identical containers so your application runs consistently across different environments. Whether you're deploying in development, testing, or production, your app behaves the same way because Kubernetes refers to your image each time a new instance or node needs to be created. Okay, so hi Kubernetes, I'm back with a container image of me. Great, I can definitely deploy this backend now. Okay, so HTML is not backend, it's my bad, it's actually backend. It's not front end, it's backend. Voila, to deploy, I'll create more managed groups of containers all running the same image. So okay, so what do these commands do? Okay, but we're getting stuck here now. Again, what does it say? So Docker build my web app, building, finish, Docker desktop Linux, build definition from Dockerfile, transferring Dockerfile, error, failure to solve, failed to read Dockerfile, open Dockerfile, no such file or directory. Did he create it or did he not create it? So So let's go back up here. Right, so I have the Nginx latest copy index. Okay, so I have that right. We created that, right, which we have here. We have the Dockerfile in the index, so that looks good. Okay, so make sure you replace your name. I mean, yes, we can do that, but that's not really resolving the problem. We can put here in this area. And if we save this and go back here and we just, right, hello from Area custom Docker image. Okay. Check that your index HTML. Okay, so we don't have any errors. Head back to our terminal. Okay, so Docker build. Okay. So why is he talking about these commands? What do these commands do? Names your container image, and the dot tells Docker to find the Docker file. Okay. What does the response from the terminal mean? The terminal response. Okay, so let's do that here. So what if we run this here? It says the same thing. Docker run. So I've noticed that there are parts that are not very clear, right? So see, for example, what I'm talking about here. There is not a step that tells me do this besides just build the Docker build command. You're asking Docker to read the instructions in the Docker file and build the container image for you currently. So it's going to use the image that we or the template that we used, right, from the Nginx server. Okay, so hi Docker, blah blah blah. So maybe it's let's see if we do this, what happens. Okay, the other thing that I like to do, right, whenever we're running into problems, is I like to copy the code, the error message, and we can just copy and paste here. Let's see what ChatGPT says about this issue. Okay, so it says that check that you're in the correct directory. Okay, so we are. List the files. Okay, so we did that as well, right? So if we do a ls once again, yes, we can see that there are the two files there. Then it says create or verify the Dockerfile. If you don't have a Dockerfile, create one in the same directory. So what happens if I just, I mean, it gave us an error before, right? Okay, so we just created that Dockerfile. Okay. So blah blah blah. Okay, so we just created a blank Docker file. Okay, so now what? So now that we created, now can we run this then? The Docker file cannot be empty. Whether you're deploying in development, okay. So we're not getting this, right? It's just giving us that error that says that it cannot be empty. So let's go back here and copy this new error that we're getting, right? Because again, right, this is how we're thinking about the problem. So first, the issue was that it was just creating a text file when we did Notepad. Dockerfile, it was creating a text file, and we noticed that here it was telling us that there is no such a file, right? But when we enter this new command, right, it just created a Docker file with no extension. We run this command, right, and now it's giving us a different error. Okay, so that's why I'm looking up a different error here. So if we go here, what does it say? So it says the error indicates that the Docker file exists but is empty. To resolve this, you need to add valid instructions to the Docker file. Add the following content as an example to create a simple Python-based web app. Okay, but nowhere. So does that mean that whatever we have here to copy it here, is that what it is? Maybe. I don't know if you can put an HTML file into the, I'm not sure. But let me save that and let's just run that. So basically I just pasted the content from the HTML file to this new Docker file. So we're gonna run that again. Docker parse error online unknown instruction. See what I'm saying? That doesn't make sense to copy this HTML. So there's something that we're missing. This is what we need to be. This is what we need to copy, right? But I don't see that anywhere. It just says that we did that. It doesn't say anything about us. Okay. So this is what we need. Okay, so I'm going to copy that into the Docker file we just created. I'm gonna save it. Okay, and let's run that once again. That might work. Okay, so it looks like it's working. Nice. We're making progress, guys. Let's go. Let's go. Okay, that makes more sense, right? Because this seems to be some type of Docker language. Okay. So now that we've done that, let's see if we can understand what happened here. So see, it was here telling me that we need to add. So I was doing. So what happened was that I added the code, right, that it asked me. But remember, once again, if you're paying attention, what we're doing here, I created it as a text. Well, I didn't, but it automatically created it as a text file, right? But instead, it has to be a blank, just Docker file. And what's the command that we used for that? We used this command. So let me grab this and actually just document it. right? And we're gonna put it here. So we used create to create a new Docker file. Cool. Just so that next time that we're doing this, we have that information, right? Okay, so we can go ahead and continue. All right, so we can go ahead now. I feel more comfortable just taking the picture and uploading it, right? So we are going to do this capture region. We'll do that. We'll save it and we'll do Dockerfile. Okay. Docker files. Okay. So now we're going to upload it. Okay. So we're gonna hit done. So where did we stop, guys? So we changed our name. We loaded. What happens if we load the localhost? Okay, still doing that. Okay. So it looks like it's working. We created. Okay, we built it. Okay, so we have the new image now with the information that we want. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to run this command. Names your container image. It just names it. Okay, so let's run it. Yeah, it's not doing anything. It tells Docker to find the Docker file in the current directory. Wow, what does the response from the terminal mean? The terminal response shows the steps Docker took to build your image from the Docker file. Okay, so we'll go over it. Alright, so it's transferring the data. Docker ignore. So from Docker resolve, it's copying. Okay, so exporting. Okay, that makes sense. Docker is loading the instructions in your Docker file to understand how to build the image, right? From Docker, Docker is processing the first line in your Docker file. Copy index. Docker is processing the second line in your Docker file, which tells it to copy your index file into the container, which it recognizes it because it is within the same directory. And exporting to image. Docker is combining all the instructions applied to the image together, making it easy and ready to run containers. Okay, okay. So I'm going to stop here, guys. I know that we haven't really done much besides going through step 4. We're towards the end, and we're going to. I'm sorry, step 3. Now we're going to jump into step 4, but I'm gonna take my break, and we'll get back right back. Okay. All right. See you guys in a bit.